Let me ask you a question. If suddenly our world went way downhill, there were 4 world wars within the next 50 years, child soldiers were bred and killed, thousands went starving, every nation was always at each other's throats, murder was a common occurrence, and this wasn't just happening to a few countries, but to everyone on Earth, including you. And suddenly, as if by magic, you were given the option to be put into a dream where there was no war, no violence, and everything you fantasized about in real life would be true in that dream. It would essentially be your perfect life. And the best part, once you're in the dream, you wouldn't even know you were dreaming at all. Would you do it? Would you go into this dream? You know, the more I think about it, the more I come to realize that Madara was right. His entire goal was to finish the Eye of the Moon plan, his plan to put the entire world into their own perfect dream through the usage of the infinite Tsukuyomi genjutsu. The world that I just described wasn't just a bunch of nonsense. Rather, it was their world, a rather bloody and violent one at that. The 3 biggest contributors to this plan were Madara, Obito, and Pain. Madara was born into a brutal feud between clans, where as a child he killed, and at the same time watched his brothers die. Obito was trained from a child to be a tool for war, where in battle half his body was crushed, and witnessed his friends die. Pain was a war orphan. He was luckily saved, but it's because of war that even as an adult, he saw his friends die next to him in battle, and even held the kunai his best friend would sacrifice his life on. All 3 had experienced such anguish, and they knew that this cruelty wasn't just happening to them, but to people everywhere. And suddenly, the opportunity to turn this world they've described as hell into one of bliss, even if the creation of this world was entirely fabricated, seemed amazing. Madara's goal since he was a child was to live in a world of peace, but as time went on, he began to realize that this could never be possible. The cycle of hatred, a recurring theme that presents itself a multitude of times throughout the series, essentially explains why peace was never an option. There are always 2 sides to each story. No one is truly righteous in any action that involves murder. You may feel just in exacting revenge against the man who killed your father, but the brother of the person you killed will want to take revenge on you, so you die, but then your friend wants to take revenge on the person who killed you, and so on and so on. This is the cycle of hatred. There will always be bloodshed and war, so there will always be war. It's because of this that Madara came to the conclusion that there is only one way to true peace. He didn't want to create peace through violence, because that wouldn't be true peace. There will always be people who felt wronged. There will always be people who want their revenge. Hashirama and Madara were able to create a peaceful village, but soon after, other villages came into conflict with them. Hashirama created peace among nations, but it ended once he died. And even at the end of Naruto, this was supposed to be the end. Peace was created amongst all the nations. And yet, even after this peace was created, in Boruto, there's mass amounts of conflict. From their perspective, it makes sense to go through with the Eye of the Moon plan. All 3 have gone through so much hardship. They've seen the cruelty of this world, and they know it will never end. By comparison, being able to live in a customized perfect world, well, there's almost no comparison at all. In the manga, we were shown glimpses of what these dreams look like. Relationships were formed, people who died were still alive, they accomplished their most ambitious dreams, had anything they wanted, and basically just lived out their own version of a perfect world. The people under the infinite Tsukuyomi wouldn't know they were in a dream, and even if they did, would they really care? Comparing just how bad the real world is to their dream, why would they want to leave? While this next example is filler, I believe it does provide some insight. When Tenten was put under the infinite Tsukuyomi, even though in the manga this wasn't possible, she was able to realize that she was in an alternate world. At first, she was scared and wanted to leave, but after spending days in this world, she eventually realized how much better this new world was. All her friends were together and alive, there was no giant war, and she was at peace. By the end of the episode, she happily accepted this dream as her reality. It's interesting, really. I remember back in high school, during my AP psychology class, we were given a question. It's been quite a while, so I'm heavily paraphrasing here. But essentially, the question went something like this. There was a man who lived a life of luxury. He was rich, had a job he loved, drove the coolest car, he was handsome, and had a pretty wife. But it turns out that this life was actually a simulation. A group of aliens were actually simulating this life into his brain. In reality, he was actually very miserable. He was homeless, didn't have a job, he was ugly, but he had a wife. Unfortunately, she was even uglier than he was. The aliens then gave the man two options. Stay in reality where you're miserable, or go back into the simulation, where you get to live your best life. The class was then asked what they would do if they were the man, and unsurprisingly, the majority of the class decided to slip back into the simulation. From my point of view, it's optimal to go through with it. You get to live in a reality where anything you want becomes true, and while in it, you believe that reality to be as real as the one you are in now. One of the biggest reasons I can see people going against the infinite Tsukuyomi is because they actually have something they don't want to lose in this world. And while I understand that, you aren't really losing anything. If you love the people and your life in this reality, then in this new one, it would be the exact same thing, except minor changes that would improve your life. But again, this plan wasn't created for our world, it was for theirs. You may be chilling at home on your phone or computer in total disagreement with Madara, without taking into account how much worse their lives are than yours. From the perspective of almost all the characters we really got to know, almost everyone has had something stripped from their lives. Other than Sakura, what main character didn't have to go through intense hardship or loss? To top it off, it all happened before they were even adults. We only got to see these things happen to the main characters because we followed their lives. But what about the thousands of other people going through similar trauma that we just didn't get to see? Yes, it's a dream. It's not reality. But at that point, what could be worse? Now, another one of the biggest arguments I saw in regards to this topic was about the tangibility of the infinite Tsukuyomi world. People siding with Naruto often bring up one of his quotes telling Madara that this was not a real piece, but a fake one. Everyone can be whatever they want in their dreams, but it's all meaningless if it's not in the real world. People side with Naruto by arguing that the value of achieving goals comes from being real, tangible, and sharing joy with others. And while in some ways I agree, there's something I think people are missing. Taking a look at this in a different perspective, I want to bring in a more obscure argument. That being, what if you're in a dream right now? Now, I'm not trying to pretend to be really deep here. I'm just asking, what if you, right now, are in a dream? Would you know? In the manga, it was shown that people under the infinite Tsukuyomi were not aware that they were under it. Their new reality was just as real as the one you're in right now. So, hypothetically, you could very well be under the infinite Tsukuyomi right now and just not know it. So if you were to claim that being under the infinite Tsukuyomi is bad because everything you do and accomplish is not tangible, well, I would find that a bit hypocritical, considering that you very well could be in a dream or simulation right now, and everything you accomplish in this world is just as tangible as if you were under the infinite Tsukuyomi. I know this all sounds very outlandish, but if you didn't understand the point I was trying to make, let me elaborate in very simple terms. If your life right now is just a dream, because, well, you don't know that, and your real body is sleeping, you can't claim that going into another dream or simulation, where you again wouldn't know you're in a dream, doesn't have tangibility or value. Because everything you do here is just as real as everything you have done here. I'm not saying that you're in a dream right now. I'm just using this to help you understand my point, that this reality is just as real to you as this reality. So claiming that nothing in the reality under the infinite Tsukuyomi has any value is wrong, because you will live and die an entire life in this reality not knowing any more about whether your reality is a dream or not than in your current real life. Now, I want to clear up that I'm not saying that what these three did was morally righteous. The execution of their plan led to the death of hundreds of people. I'm not defending that, but I can understand their thought process. They're only doing this for the greater good. It doesn't matter if I kill these people now, because I'm doing this for peace. For the world. Even if no one else can see it, even if they call me a villain or rebel against me, I'm doing the right thing. Most villains don't really see themselves as actual villains. Thanos, Lelouch, Light, none of them see themselves as the villain. They can clearly see the masses fighting back against them and calling them evil, yet they continue to pursue their goal. They understand what they're doing isn't entirely morally correct, but if the end justifies the means, then why stop? One of the reasons I'm even mentioning this is because I believe it's this mentality that I think hurt Madara. I feel the biggest reason the infinite Tsukuyomi is bad is because it was forced upon everyone. No one had a choice, even if it was for the benefit of everyone on Earth. And it's the main reason he's perceived as a villain. Oh, and also Obito using his name as a murderous villain, all the death he's caused, and, you know, just how he's visually portrayed. I mean, come on, he could have been donating to charity to help puppies, and he'd still look evil here. Now, like practically every video I make, I know there are people who still disagree and want to take it personally. But listen, if you disagree with Madara, I'm not saying you're wrong. The infinite Tsukuyomi will essentially wipe out the human race. It's inherently unethical. However, for the sake of the argument, put yourself in their shoes, in the shoes of someone like Nagato or Obito, and realize that these terrible things aren't just happening to you, but to the rest of the shinobi world. Personally, when I put myself in their shoes, I start to feel sympathy. I can understand where they're coming from. I believe that Madara believed that humanity would be better off going extinct than continuing down this path of blood. If you try to look at this objectively but still disagree, then that's fine, maybe even good in fact. Taking out the entire world isn't what most people would consider morally sound. However, whichever side you agree with, well, it doesn't truly matter. I don't think there is a definitive right or wrong answer. I think there are a lot of ways to think about it, but I really think it just comes down to what you value and where your morals lie. At the very least though, I do hope you found this video interesting, and hope you enjoyed. Oh, and also, I know the tablet was changed so Madara was more inclined to go through with the plan, but he didn't know it was altered, and even if it wasn't, I believe he still would have gone through with it. Well, that's all. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see y'all later. Take it easy. Also, sorry if I kind of sound weird. I had COVID.